Help! Call the police! There's a burglar! Returning home from celebrating my mother's 60th birthday, I discovered that the watch worth $24,000 she had bought for me was missing. I told my husband that someone had broken in and to call the cops. But he said, "Stop. It's definitely in the house." Stop? Definitely in the house? What does that mean? Why so sure? But I've already called the cops, you know? I've called them already. It must have been that person who liked the watch, right? That's why you don't want me to call the police, huh? I'm so disappointed. Really disillusioned with you. I can't deal with this anymore. You and your idiot family are gonna see hell. My name is Sophie, I'm 38 years old. I married Ethan after dating for 2 years, just 3 months ago. He's my beloved husband, handsome and respectable. But there's just one thing about him I can't forgive. Well, saying it's about him might not be quite right. Though, without it, I believe we could have been happy. The thing about Ethan that bothers me is... Ethan, your mom came over again today. She did? Well, let her stay comfortably. My mother-in-law, Ethan's biological mother. An extremely unpleasant presence, but Ethan is overly sweet to his mom. Why do I dislike the mother of the man I love so much? Well, because of that incident. We were living together even before we got married. So, I thought nothing much would change after our marriage, expecting to continue living as we had been. I came over again today. I almost feel nauseous. My mother-in-law saying something like she's visiting her boyfriend's place. After getting married, she comes every Friday to stay over, leaving Sunday afternoon. And we're newlyweds. Because it's lonely being alone. I don't care. But this wasn't the case when we were just dating. She never once came to our place. However, as soon as we got married, she started coming over as if it were the most natural thing. Curious, I asked her about it and got a nonsensical reply. You see, before you were married, you weren't officially family. I thought it'd be bothersome if I, as the boyfriend's mom, imposed myself. But now that you're married, you're technically family, right? So I figured I don't have to hold back anymore. Her response left me dumbfounded. What is she even talking about? I can't understand her logic or common sense. I vent my frustrations to Ethan. True, we're still newlyweds, and I'd like to spend the weekends with just the two of us. He understands and has tried talking to his mom about it. Though, when he says trying, Mom, we're still newlyweds, you know. Having you come over every week is a bit much. Mom, maybe it's better if you head home early today. You're welcome to stay longer if you want. His way of speaking is incredibly roundabout. I don't know if he doesn't want to upset his mother or what, but not being direct just makes me more frustrated listening to it. I should have been the one to firmly say it. But then again, we're still newlyweds, and complaining about my mother-in-law when we're going to have a long relationship ahead, starting it off on a tense note. Despite these thoughts, I'm infuriated that she shamelessly comes to our house every single week. Moreover, she bosses me around, which only makes my anger skyrocket. Hey, Sophie. I'm a guest, you know? Entertain me. After you finish eating, clear the dishes promptly. Or what? Are you planning to make your guests do the housework? What an unreasonable wife. Despite claiming me as family after marrying Ethan, her comments are bizarre. If we're family, the least she could do is clean up after herself. But lately, Ethan seems to be taking the same stance as his irrational mother. Indeed, this is my house, and Mom is a guest. I am building a new household, after all. A husband who doesn't protect his wife from discomfort but agrees with his mother. Then he started saying this. Mom has come all the way here, changing trains multiple times. It must be hard on a woman over 60. Let her rest. I almost retorted, then why not just stop coming to our house every week? But I held back, not wanting to start a conflict. I swallowed my words. That's right. I come all this way to see Ethan, changing trains just to get here. So you should entertain me. If she wants to see Ethan that badly, she should call him to her place. Don't involve me. Such a headache, this mother and son. Lately, I'm in resignation mode. There were days I cried over being newlyweds before. I've complained to Ethan. But Ethan is? Well, Mom does bring various gifts when she comes. So don't be too harsh. Indeed, my mother-in-law always brings gifts when she visits. Hearing just that, one might think, what a conscientious person, so thoughtful. But I believe her true intention is different. The gifts she brings are always Ethan's favorites. And she makes sure to give them directly to him, not through me. Here, I brought this for you. You love these snacks, right? Please eat a lot. She speaks as if I'm not even in her field of vision. And, of course, Ethan is happy to receive his favorite treats. Express gratitude with a beaming smile. Thanks, Mom. I was just wanting to eat this. Your choices are always the best. Ethan beams with joy. My mother-in-law glanced at me and smirked. She knows I dislike it and deliberately irritates me. What is her deal? While I'm irritated by my mother-in-law's actions, Ethan accepts her weekly visits. Deceived by my mother-in-law's strategic behavior, Ethan is pleased, and she's too pleased with herself, knowing exactly what her son likes. Why did I even marry Ethan? Lately, that's all I think about. Despite loving him so much before. Now I can only see him as a mama's boy, which is gross. I'm seriously considering divorce, and soon it's my mother's 60th birthday celebration. A festive occasion, especially for one's own parents. With such a joyous event just around the corner, I can't possibly divorce now. I'm causing worry for many people. Because of that, I'm enduring and tasting the bitterness every day. Amidst this, the reckless behavior of this foolish mother and son accelerated. One day, my mother-in-law came over, as usual. Sophie, why haven't you brought more beer when it ran out? You're not very considerate. Bring a new one now. And some snacks too. When did I become her servant? Or a waitress? Sighing, I followed her demands. Then, I heard her excitedly shouting. Curious, I went to the living room with the beer and snacks, only to find, look at this watch, Ethan. Isn't it wonderful? It fits me perfectly. I love it. She was wearing my watch. That watch was very important to me. It was a present from my mother for my 20th birthday. What's more, it cost $24,000. I can't imagine how much my mother must have struggled to save up that money. I was raised in a single-parent home. We weren't wealthy, but I've put you through a lot. I've been saving for this day, my mother said, having saved up for my coming of age. To have such a meaningful item casually worn by my mother-in-law was incredibly upsetting. Moreover, it was taken without my permission from the watch case on the dresser, which was incredibly rude. Please stop! That's a precious watch my mother gave me. When I intervened, my mother-in-law freaked out. Huh? I'm wearing it now. What do you mean stop? Are you trying to restrict my actions? I couldn't understand why she would say such a thing after taking my property without permission. As I stood dumbfounded, she, seemingly struck by a thought, gleamed at me with a request. You know, this watch is lovely. It looks expensive. Give it to me. I had already mentioned it was a precious gift from my mother. Yet, she had the audacity to ask for it, which was beyond brazen. This is really important to me. I absolutely cannot give it to you. I firmly refused. Then, like a child throwing a tantrum, she whined. I want it. Give it to me. How can she not be embarrassed at her age? I've told you many times, it's very important to me. This watch costs $24,000. I can't just give it away. After saying that, her eyes sparkled even more. $24,000? All the more reason I want it. I regretted mentioning the price. It was too late for regrets. She refused to take off the watch. "This is mine," she declared, refusing to listen.
Hey, Ethan. You know how important this watch has been to me since we were dating, right?
Desperate, I turned to Ethan for help. I expected him to say something like, "But Mom." To my surprise, Ethan came to my rescue, albeit with an unnecessary comment.
"Mom, I'll buy you something even better than that watch. So, let's return the watch, okay?"
His words irritated me.
"Really? Then I don't need this."
Urged by Ethan, she immediately took off the watch.
"Make sure to buy me something much better and more expensive."
"Okay," Ethan appeased her. The way they both treated my watch as if it was nothing infuriated me. It's such an important watch to me, and it's unforgivable. However, surprisingly, after my mother-in-law left, Ethan apologized about the watch. It seems he knew how much I valued it and intended to make sure it never ended up in his mother's hands. I wish he had stopped her when she tried to wear it. Nonetheless, it's true that I felt a sense of happiness from Ethan's kindness for the first time in a while. Ethan might behave that way towards his mother, but everyone holds their mother dear, after all. Though in the case of his mother, I do think she comes over too much. As irritating as she is, on the days she doesn't come, Ethan is the kind and loving man I fell for. I've started to notice more things that annoy me, but I'll try to accept them gradually. Besides, constantly being irritated isn't good for me. I'll stop getting angry just because our newlywed life is being disturbed. Considering cohabitation in her old age as practice, I decided to compromise. Perhaps because I became more accommodating, my mother-in-law's selfishness only grew worse. Yes, until it escalated into such a major incident. Today is my mother's 60th birthday celebration. I have a younger brother, and his wife is also joining us. When I mentioned it, Ethan said, "Let me celebrate with you too," offering to join the celebration. We decided to go back to my hometown for the weekend, staying overnight on Friday. I was thrilled at the prospect of spending a weekend without my mother-in-law for the first time in a while. Ethan and I met up after work and headed to my parents' house. It felt like we were on a trip, and I was genuinely happy.
"It's been a while since we've done something like this," I said to Ethan, and he nodded. "Sorry, my mom has been so selfish lately."
He surprisingly apologized. Ethan, like me, was raised by a single parent. He feels a strong sense of gratitude towards his mother, which is why he finds it hard to stand up to her. I understand his feelings. I felt guilty for being angry by myself, realizing the conflict he was going through. The conversation flowed easily on the way, and before we knew it, we had arrived in my hometown. My brother, who lives there, came to pick us up, and we went to our family home. It was a joyful reunion with my mother and brother after such a long time. I had forgotten about my mother-in-law for a while and enjoyed the moment. Probably because I had been under a lot of stress usually. I ended up having a great time. After a grand celebration for my mother, it was suddenly time to return. The conversation with Ethan was lively on the train back, and we enjoyed the afterglow of the visit. But when we got home...
"What? You've got to be kidding!"
My watch was missing. I don't wear my watch for personal outings. Since I like to drink, I avoid wearing it to prevent losing or damaging it while intoxicated.
"What happened?"
No signs of a break-in. Just my precious watch is gone.
"My important watch."
Confusion and dismay overwhelmed me. Why was it only my watch that disappeared?
"What's going on? What does this mean?"
I became desperate and started crying uncontrollably.
"Just calm down for now."
Despite the fact that the watch had gone missing while we were away, Ethan seemed oddly calm for some reason. But there was no way I could stay calm in such a situation.
"What are you talking about? Call the police. There's a thief."
I insisted on calling the police. Then, Ethan's expression suddenly changed.
"Stop it. It has to be in the house." "What? It has to be in the house? What does that mean?"
I couldn't believe my ears. Why could he say that with such certainty? As I wondered, he said, "Just wait a bit," and went somewhere to make a phone call. I didn't understand. But, thinking it might just be somewhere, I searched all over the house. Yet, it was nowhere to be found. It really was stolen. As I was getting more depressed, Ethan, who had finished his phone call, came towards me.
My mom is coming over now.
His mom? Why at a time like this? When I said, "This is hardly the time," Ethan silently looked down. He seemed like he wanted to say something, but what could it be? While pondering and searching for the watch, my mother-in-law arrived shortly. Really, why the sudden call?
I was in the middle of shopping.
In the middle of shopping?
Sorry, Mom. But as I said over the phone, Sophie's watch is missing. You've been at home all this time, haven't you? I just thought maybe.
Been at home? Why? Wait a minute. You mean to say my mother-in-law has been at home all this time? What does that mean? I immediately asked, and my mother-in-law, laughing, answered.
I stayed over as usual while you two were away.
What? Stayed over? What does that mean? As I stood there bewildered, Ethan started to make excuses in a panic.
Well, if something happened while we were away, it would be trouble, right? What if a thief broke in? So, I gave Mom the keys and she said she wanted to clean the house as a way of thanking us for letting her stay over every week.
What is he talking about? First of all, why didn't he tell me that his mother would be in our house? I was so flustered I couldn't think straight and could only shout, "What is that?" Then, Ethan continued with his excuses.
You were really looking forward to your mom's 60th birthday celebration, right? I didn't want to dampen your spirits by saying something upsetting. And you know, you're not comfortable around my mom, so.
This guy is hopeless, this is going nowhere. Enough already. Whatever. As I muttered that, Ethan kept rambling on as if trying to justify the situation. But I wasn't listening anymore. I had thought too highly of Ethan. I was wrong. I genuinely felt that I could no longer be with Ethan. And as I was utterly disillusioned with Ethan, I directed my anger towards my mother-in-law. After all, she liked my watch. She definitely stole it.
Let's put aside the fact that you were in the house without my permission for now.
When I said this, my mother-in-law responded.
Why should I need your permission to be in Ethan's house? Are you stupid?
I wanted to retort, "You're the stupid one," but I restrained myself and asked instead.
Where did you put my watch that was here?
To which my mother-in-law replied with feigned innocence.
Maybe you lost it somewhere?
I mentioned that I don't wear it for personal outings and always keep it here, which made her explode in anger.
If it was so important, you should have kept it with you at all times.
Such a defiant response. I immediately countered.
So, you're admitting to taking my watch without permission?
She fell silent to my question, but after a while, began to rattle off excuses just like Ethan.
Because Ethan didn't buy me the watch. And then you went to your mother's 60th birthday celebration. It made me so mad, so I took it.
Her excuse sounded like a child's rationale for a prank. How old is she mentally, I wondered. Even Ethan seemed upset by her reasoning and challenged her.
Hey, you're saying this is my fault?
As Ethan spoke up, my mother-in-law slammed the table and stood up, directing her anger at him.
Yes. I hated that you went to your wife's parents' place. I don't care if it was her 60th birthday or whatever. You didn't need to go. You're my child, you shouldn't be celebrating your wife's parents.
I felt like she was belittling my mother too and was on the verge of exploding.
Why would you need to steal the watch? The watch disappeared, and you were the first person who came to mind. I didn't give you the keys for this. Give back the watch now.
Ethan was furious before I could say anything. Right, the priority now is the safety of the watch.
Yes, please return the watch immediately.
When I demanded, my mother-in-law became even more stubborn. No way.
It's mine now, I won't give it back.
Her obstinacy was infuriating.
Is that so? Then, I'll report this as a theft to the police." At my words, both my mother-in-law and Ethan exclaimed in unison.
"The police!"
They panicked.
"Surely, what Mom did is unforgivable. But there's no need to go that far. We know she's the culprit. If it helps, I can buy you a better watch than that one."
There it was again, Ethan's "that watch" comment. Hey, I told you, that watch was a precious gift from my mother, who raised me by herself. Why would you refer to it as that watch? Ethan was left speechless by my question. Then my mother-in-law started ranting again. Making such a big deal over a watch to call the police? Since Ethan is offering to buy a new one, just accept it. Despite mentioning the police, she refused to return it, which made me wonder. Why go to such lengths not to return it? If you won't give it back, I'll have the police arrest you. What will you do? There's still time. This was a critical moment for my mother-in-law. Yet, her response was,
"No, I won't return it. It's ridiculous to call the police over this. Ethan will just buy a new one, and that should be enough."
I've always thought she was unreasonable, but this confirmed it. As I stood there dumbfounded, Ethan interjected. "Hey, let's all calm down. Mom will return the watch to Sophie, and Sophie won't call the police. I'll buy a new watch, okay?" Everyone's logic seemed flawed. It was all becoming too much to handle.
"I won't return it. I absolutely won't give back the watch."
Even now, my mother-in-law insists on not returning it. I can't take this anymore. I'm seriously going to explain to the police that my watch was stolen by your mother. Exhausted, I said this, and both of them tried to stop me again.
"Stop it, I told you."
They yelled at me, and I replied. "But I've already called the police."
"What?"
Indeed, I had already reported it to the police.
"What do you mean?"
Both panicked when the doorbell rang. It was the police.
"Wait. Why are the police here? When did you call them?"
Ignoring the two of them shouting, I let the police in. Suddenly, it got very quiet. Seeing them shrink in front of the police officer, I thought, serves you right. Then, the police began to question them intensely. Seeing the two of them looking so sheepish was pitiful. As expected, my mother-in-law was arrested. Ethan, having lent her the keys, was thoroughly interrogated to determine if he was complicit in the crime. He was ultimately found not guilty but was visibly worn out and had developed gray hairs. Ethan repeatedly apologized and said, "I'm truly sorry, but I couldn't forgive him," and pushed a divorce paper towards him, saying, "Sign this."
"What? Why?"
Did he really think he did nothing wrong? Letting your mother use me every week, treating my precious watch as just something, letting your mother into our home while we were away without consulting me, and stubbornly refusing to call the police this time. These are the reasons. When I explained why I wanted a divorce, he started with his usual excuses. See, it's that kind of excuse that I can't stand. It was really fun when we were dating, and I loved you. But I've realized that Ethan turns into a worthless mama's boy whenever your mother is involved. Ethan fell silent when I said this. Staying with Ethan means I'll always be reminded of your mother, and I don't want that. So let's get divorced. Ethan simply said I'm sorry and agreed to the divorce. Thus, I was freed from that foolish pair. As for why my mother-in-law stubbornly refused to return the watch, it was because I broke the watch. Apparently, she got carried away, wore it out, got drunk during a meal, and somehow cracked it.
"I couldn't return it because I thought you'd ask me to compensate for it. It was worth $24,000, after all, so I got scared."
If she had just returned it quietly, it wouldn't have escalated this much. What a foolish person. However, the police took it as evidence but assured me it would be returned to me. I was relieved. Naturally, I made my mother-in-law compensate for the broken part. As a result, her savings were depleted in one go, and now she's struggling, not knowing what to do with her life after being released. As for Ethan, being seen by coworkers as the police entered our home led to baseless rumors like he got divorced because he was abusive. He got into a police case because of his aggressive attitude.
This caused him to develop neurosis and resign. Now, he's busy looking for a new job. Moreover, their relationship worsened significantly due to this incident, and they are almost estranged now. My mother-in-law leads a lonely, frugal life, and Ethan struggles to find work. Both are having a hard time. You might wonder when I called the police. Actually, I did it while Ethan was on the phone with his mother. Unable to stand it any longer, I contacted the nearby police station the moment Ethan left the room. I was told it would take about 30 minutes for them to arrive, which made me feel even more depressed due to the shock of having my watch stolen. But when I realized my mother-in-law was the culprit, I was determined to confront her thoroughly. Surprisingly, they arrived in about 30 minutes. I was warned by the police officer, in case of domestic disputes, if the culprit wields a knife or similar, it could lead to a bloody incident, so try not to provoke them. Reflecting on that advice, I decided to use this experience to grow further as a person. The time I spent with Ethan cannot be brought back. However, it's true that I've learned a lot from this experience. Going forward, I want to use this incident as a lesson and walk towards a bright future, cherishing the precious watch I received from my mother.